All right, sir, you're on. Can you tell us who you are and what you do?
My name is Ed Almanza, and I am the city's environmental consultant, but not the EIR consultant.
What's the difference?
Well, my task is to oversee the EIR, to manage the EIR process, and in fact to help hire the EIR consultant. The EIR consultant will be in charge of production of the EIR, and so together we will work to present the process to the public, starting with the scoping meeting. We will work to assist the public in understanding that product, which is not a simple task for this project. So we're just about to launch that.
Let me ask you a couple of more what the lawyers would call foundational questions, Ed. Who do you work for?
I work for the city.
And who pays you?
The city.
In terms of fiduciary duties, in which direction do those flow? To the city or to somebody else? In other words, who's your primary, who's your client?
The city.
Okay, do you have any other clients?
Yes.
Well, I don't mean other than the city, but I mean in terms of this project.
No. Other than, for this project, the city is my sole client.
Okay. Very good. Sometimes direct goes well, sometimes it doesn't. Cross-examination is harder. Go ahead, so tell us about the EIR.
So there's much to say about the EIR, and we can only say a little bit of it tonight. I think the scoping meeting begins that process, and we will be describing the EIR to the public and to you for many months. There's lots to say about it because it's a complex project. Every EIR is different. This one is particularly different for two reasons. It's highly technical, the subject matter that we're addressing. Secondly, EIRs are always prepared for the decision makers and for the public. In the case of this project, the public play the role of decision makers. So it's important that the public understand the content of the EIR. So we will be doing a scoping meeting, and in that scoping meeting, in addition to soliciting public input on the scope of the EIR, we will be describing the project, which is a complex project, and we will be describing the EIR, because most people really don't have familiarity with an EIR. They're difficult to read even for simple projects. I don't like reading them. They're a pain to read, they're complex, they use vocabulary that changes from chapter to chapter. So we are going to make a very deliberate effort to help the public with this, and that means if we need 2 scoping meetings, we'll do 2 scoping meetings. But primarily what we want to do is be available to the public. So we'll have workshops when the draft EIR is released. We'll have something like office hours so that I would be available to do informal Q&A with the public. And I think this is necessary because, as I said, the EIR is a difficult thing to wrap your arms around. The EIR will address the usual topics, but in this case we need to address some very specific topics that are peculiar to oil.
Can you tell us what the usual topics are, just off the top?
The usual topics would be air quality, noise, land use compatibility, traffic, visual impacts, sometimes biological impacts, and water quality. In this case, we'll be looking at risk assessment, we'll be looking at public risk due to oil operations on site and or the pipeline conveyance of oil and gas. And this requires some very specialized technical studies. And again, that needs some help making that accessible to the public. So we plan to, again, use some study aids, if you will, to translate this stuff. We cannot violate the EIR by dumbing it down, as it were, but we need to be able to make it accessible to the public. And so that's one of the things that we told our consultants in the interview process is we need a user-friendly EIR, and that's our goal here. The other thing that this EIR has to do is it has to be prepared in tandem with these other documents, the HIA, the Health Impact Assessment, and the Cost-Benefit Study. So to get back to Councilman Fishman's question about this scheduling, there is information from each of these documents, each of these reports that needs to be